America's best days are yet to come. That's because conservatives like you know and live the values our great country was built on. The Heritage Foundation exists to make sure your voice is heard in the D.C. swamp each day, shining the light on a bright future. The Heritage Foundation stands for your values and won't give up the fight because they know you never will. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. You know, ladies and gentlemen, I've been looking at mostly headlines in most of the American media lecturing us that the attacks on these Venezuelan drug boats that are aimed to spread death and mayhem in the United States and to kill mostly our young people and others, that it's clearly illegal. And then they cherry-pick the experts who say it's illegal. Then I went back and I started to go through these articles, and you know what's interesting? They don't really tell us why it's illegal. Exactly what law has been violated. And then they tell us all kinds of arguments, well, we're not really at war and so forth and so on. So they go into the ether to make their case. But I want to make the point again. If Venezuela succeeded in releasing toxins into our atmosphere over our country that were deadly, I don't think there's anybody who would question that's an act of war. If Venezuela poisoned our water supply system, I don't think anybody would argue that's not an act of war. So Venezuela is the source of much toxic, illegal drugs that come into our country, is working in collusion with Communist China, Russia, and Iran, and succeeds in getting those deadly drugs into our country and killing our people, then I would argue that's an act of war, too. It's not just a criminal matter. It is a government of a country that has declared that it is trying to kill and maim American citizens. Now, I understand some people are uncomfortable. We're calling a spade. I am not. I understand there's some people who have spent their lives with their faces in the U.S. Code, and that's all they know. Well, that's not rational, is it? So, of course, what Venezuela's doing is trying to kill American citizens. The country, controlled by the government, a dictator, a Marxist dictator, an illegitimate Marxist dictator, in collusion with other enemies and adversaries of the United States. And so when I hear Rand Paul, a radical libertarian, make suggestions about quote-unquote due process, in a war like this, you don't get due process. It's not a court of law. You have a commander-in-chief. It's a completely different process that you're dealing with. It amazes me, I would argue, that 70 or 80 years ago, maybe even 50 years ago, if a president was doing as Donald Trump is doing, the United States would be united behind him. Democrats, Republicans, independents, and everybody else. Instead, we have Democrats taking to the airwaves, accusing the Secretary of Defense, that is, of war crimes, for ordering the killing of survivors of the first attack on one of these drug speedboats. Number one, we know that he didn't order a second attack. He wasn't there. The admiral did. Number two, that's not a war crime. Now, they will read to you language that says that if people are injured and so forth and so on and they're no longer a threat, that you no longer target them. Well, that's all well and good. But as the Secretary of War said, Hegseth, during the fog of war, you can't exactly pinpoint that the way people in their Senate offices and in their House offices and media in their offices discern what you cannot discern in the middle of the action. But all of that aside, don't you find it odd that the instinct of these people is to attack us and not the enemy? Maduro's a genocidal maniac. Maduro is a narco kingpin. Maduro has undermined and usurped 2 elections in which he lost to the voters. Maduro has hitmen. He's got armed civilian militia. He's got, obviously, the regular military. He has accumulated $30 to $40 billion, raping his country, starving his people. He has exported prisoners and mental patients from his prisons and his institutions into the United States. He has exported an international drug gang into the United States. He has exported, in collusion with Russia, China, and Iran, God knows the tonnage of drugs into our country, killing and maiming your family members. And the reaction of our media and the reaction of the Democrats to a man and a woman and a transitioner, and the reaction of some of these RINO Republicans, these neo-isolationist Republicans as well, is to attack the commander-in-chief and the Secretary of War. Really quite amazing, don't you think? Legal fight erupts over second strike on suspected drug boat. U.S. drug boat strikes don't cross a line. Let's see this one. Ooh. U.S. drug boats that don't cross a line, they're legally, hold on, damn computer, indefensible. No lines here, it's just indefensible. Acts. Criminal acts. Wow. How much did Hegseth know about the controversial boat strike, the second one in particular? And it goes on and on. Well, I'm all for it. It's in our hemisphere, the Monroe Doctrine. They're trying to kill our people. There's no question what's going on here. Pushing these deadly drugs into our country. Killing our young people, killing other people. It amazes me. It amazes me what we see here. The Democrat Party, open borders where women by the hundreds of thousands are sold into sex slavery and pornography. They don't blink. Unaccompanied children, hundreds of thousands missing, also sold into sex slavery and labor slavery. They don't blink. Venezuela pushing God knows how much deadly drugs into this country, including fentanyl. They don't blink. They don't blink. Now, all of a sudden, the Democrat Party and some of the RINOs and isolationists They're very particular about our law. They don't normally give a damn about the law, but they're very particular about it now. And they want it applied against Trump and Hegseth. They hate Hegseth. The more they hate you, the more effective you are. That's how you know. They don't target lame brains. They don't target lazy individuals. They don't target ineffective individuals. They target the best of the best. I haven't talked to Hegseth in months. In fact, haven't talked to any cabinet secretary in months. Hegseth is doing his job better than Austin ever did it. Better than Epsi ever did it, or whatever the hell that guy's name is. Better than any of them have done it. He's reforming the Pentagon by pushing out the DEI. We have more people trying to get into the military now as volunteers than any time in modern history. President is muscling up the United States military. He uses it for targeted operations. He muscles them up. And in this case, we're talking about in our hemisphere, where they're attacking our children and grandchildren. And we have these former federal prosecutors who really are irrelevant, talking about what should happen in a criminal justice process. You know, I remember after 9/11, the big criticism, rightly so, was that we treat terrorism and terrorists as a criminal justice matter. Not as a counterterrorism matter, not as a military matter. And so we have a president who treats this as a military matter, as a national security matter, and they're trying to drag him back into a criminal justice mentality and drag all of us back into a courtroom mentality. This can come to an end immediately if Venezuela would stop trying to kill and poison our population. It's that simple. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. You look at what Donald Trump does. He's trying to keep drugs out of the country when another government is trying to force them into our country. Those are acts of war. I don't care what all the pinheads have to say. President has secured the border. Now he's having to find the individuals who are in our country, led into our country by the Biden regime and the Democrats, who are here to blow up our buildings, kill our people, destroy our government, destroy our schools. So he's trying to deal with that, and he's taking some of the most aggressive stands against immigration from countries that breed this kind of terrorism, countries that experience this kind of terrorism, countries that aren't effectively really countries, for that matter. They're lawless regimes. And he's trying to protect we, the American people, from those aliens and those people and trying to remove them. President Trump supports the cops who are trying to protect us from predators, whether they're homegrown or they're not homegrown. Now, we should be out there celebrating what he's doing. Celebrating it because he has the guts to do what he's doing. And most politicians simply do not. And so we have the spitballers in Congress. Finally, they wake up. Do they wake up to defend the country? No. Do they wake up to deport illegal immigrants? No. Did they wake up to secure the border? Some did, some didn't. But they wake up when it comes to trying to destroy a Pete Hegseth. They wake up when it comes to trying, of course, to destroy Donald Trump. And what have these men done? They're trying to act in the best interests of the country and to protect us. To protect us. This is going on in our hemisphere under the Monroe Doctrine. This is going on in our communities, in our neighborhoods, in our schools, in our streets. And if they had their way, these Lilliputians, these Quislings, it would continue to go on and go on even more. They claim to care about people. They don't care about us. They simply don't. What's a few more deaths? What's a few more deaths? President's trying to deport illegal aliens. That's the law. It's funny. They talk about what's the law. That's the law. They don't have to be serial criminals. They don't have to be rapists and murderers to deport. You're here illegally. Get the hell out. And even when he's trying to deport violent criminals who are here illegally, foreigners who are in our country illegally, maiming our people. You've got Democrat Party mayors and governors and city councilmen and the rest trying to block him. Trying to block him. So who is it? Who is it that's trying to protect the American people? This shouldn't be an ideological issue. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. But it is. It's both. The Marxist Islamists want more illegal aliens. They are violent. They reject our republic. They reject the Judeo-Christian values that undergird our country and our society. They seek to reverse what we've created through immigration. The Democrat Party cares about one thing, power. They are power hungry. That's it. They've always been power hungry. That's it. Party before country. Party before country. Ideology before party. And party before country. That's what they are. And that's what we're up against. And so now they're very worried about two druggies, drug distributors who were on a boat that got blown up twice. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I could care less. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. And I expect that the vast majority of the American people don't either. You got Rand Paul out there. Either Pete Hegseth is lying or incompetent. No, how about Pete Hegseth is telling the truth, is very competent, and is courageous. Unlike you, you weasel. Unlike you, you weasel. You've got Hakeem Jeffries out there calling the Secretary of War the so-called Secretary of Defense. So-called? From the so-called speaker wannabe? These are cowards. These are buffoons. Mark Warner, who can barely complete a sentence without making an ass out of himself. Trump and Hegseth are the biggest crowd of wimps you've ever seen. Hegseth, a combat veteran. Warner, a moron. I'll be right back. We're coming upon the 250th birthday of the United States, and it has me thinking, what will America look like 250 years from now? My friends at the Heritage Foundation want to know what you think. What policies should America prioritize? What principles should carry us into the decades ahead? As America enters a new golden age, Heritage recognizes that this is the time to take stock and to be intentional about how we shape the future of America. And they can't do it without your input. So please go to heritage.org/LEVIN and let them know what you think is important. Without patriots like you stepping up and speaking up for what you believe in, America as we know it can't survive for another 250 years. Please go to heritage.org/Levin, heritage.org/LEVIN. Take the survey on America's future future. This survey takes less than 10 minutes to complete, but it is critical for making sure that the America we pass on to future generations is an America we're proud of. Go to heritage.org/Levin today. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation.
Mark Levin, the thunder on the right. Call in now, 877-381-3811.
We're here with our friend Chip Roy. Chip Roy, how's your campaign going, my friend?
Mark, I hope you had a blessed Thanksgiving.
Yes, sir.
Campaign is going great. We got all over the state of Texas. Of course, now I'm back to my day job and trying to, get my colleagues to stand behind the president in all ways that we can and deliver. But look, the results are good down in Texas. Polling is showing me way up in the polls, and we're just, trying to run strong, and early voting starts in mid-February. So we're feeling good.
Now, you're running for Attorney General of Texas, and that's a big job, isn't it?
It is, and as you and I've talked about, it's difficult because I've got so many good friends, and I've really enjoyed what we've done here in Washington and changing the institution and delivering, alongside the president, the big beautiful bill. And we're still working, but it's also a time to go back and make sure that we fight for Texas, because if we lose Texas, we lose America, and we're as you and I've talked about, we're under assault. Open borders, the Marxist Islamist attack on Texas. What they're doing with Epic City, what they're doing with Sharia law, what they're doing with mosques. And we've got to address it. And you got to have somebody smart enough to be able to deal with the complications of, First Amendment jurisprudence, but he's willing to stand up and call it out and stand up and call out the radical leftists that are putting criminals on our streets. And, God's given me the background and the experience to be a part of fights, but also to understand the law and to be a former prosecutor and to be there at the right time. So putting my name out there, and we feel good about it.
Jim Roy, I'm reading a lot of these news stories and hearing a lot of former federal prosecutors say that our military actions against Venezuela to try and keep their drugs out of our country are illegal. And I don't care if I'm the only one that says this. They're absolutely not illegal. Self-defense, there's a whole lot of arguments that can and should be made, as far as I'm concerned, about the right to keep these poisons out of our country. I mean, if they were putting toxins in the air, in our atmosphere of our country, that would be an act of war. If they were poisoning our water, that would be an act of war. And so now they're poisoning our people. They're using Russia and China and Mexico, Mexican cartels. But we know it's them. And we know it's not an individual or a cartel. We know it's a government that is trying to kill as many Americans as possible as it enriches itself. What's your take on this?
Well, I think this is actually a really important threshold question. And Mark, you're one of the smartest lawyers I know. I know you care deeply about the Constitution. You've written I don't know how many books about it. You and I both share a commitment with separation of powers, making sure that we're watching the law carefully. I don't think this is a close call, and I'm watching all of this hand-wringing over it. And look, and I say that as someone, you know me, if I thought that this was an overstep, I'd say so. Because I actually have a duty to. So I'm looking at this and I'm going, okay, I'm trying to think of this. If this were a Democrat, if I just disagreed with them on other issues, do I think the President of the United States can act preemptively to go hit a boat that you've got narco-terrorists running fentanyl with good intelligence, that it will get into the United States and certainly kill Americans? And we know they're doing it. And by the way, that we've declared any number of these cartels as terrorist organizations, rightfully so, by the way. Do I think the President of the United States has the ability under his Article 2 powers to do that? Yes, I do. Now, have I explored every angle of every limit over years and what it all looks like? No, and I'll pay attention to it. But the president has a duty to defend us from those who are trying to kill us, especially when they're the organized cartels who have been at war with us for decades.
Let me underscore your point. During the Reagan administration and under the State Department back then, George Shultz, it was the position of President Reagan and Shultz and Weinberg and the others, that America has an absolute inherent right to defend itself against any illegal use of force. And that would include deadly drugs that are pouring into our countries from Venezuela, that's making a fortune, from the government of Venezuela. And these assumptions are supported in, if you look at the DOD Law of War Manual, the United States, I'm quoting, has long taken the position that the inherent right of self-defense potentially applies against any legal use of force, unquote. So this criticism of the administration's use of force against a government that is using cartels and other third parties to bring killer drugs into our country to kill hundreds of thousands of Americans, if that's not self-defense, both under the defense policy and under the broader policy of the United States that's been in existence for half a century, I don't know what the hell is.
Well, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, but from my memory, and I haven't looked at it in a while, if you go back over the last decade, you have probably upwards of 500,000 Americans who have died from some variations of synthetic opioids driven primarily by fentanyl. Mm-hmm. If that is true, notwithstanding whatever fault lies with the individuals in America who might take some drugs they shouldn't or whatever, if you have 500,000 Americans that have been killed this way, how many were killed in World War II? From memory,
about 400,000, give or take.
400 and something thousand, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So more people have died in the last decade than died in World War II. Now, I realize there's different time zones, time constraints, but that's what we're talking about. The President of the United States taking what I would call as lawful preemptive strikes against organized terrorist cartels that are doing this purposefully. And I think the president has Article 2 authority to do that.
Yeah, me too. Now, if Congress disagrees, Congress can cut off the funding. The War Powers Act, I don't even believe that's constitutional. That's never been tested. But that said, Congress can cut off the funding. If they don't have the votes to cut off the funding, they can impeach a president. If they don't have votes to impeach a president, they happen to lose this constitutional battle. That's the way it goes. But I can go back to Noriega, in Panama. We sent our Marines in there. They shot their way in. 300 of the Panamanian military and civilians, maybe more, dead. 23 of our Marines killed for the purpose of capturing Noriega, who was another drug kingpin, who was pushing drugs into our country through Colombia. I know, I was there toward the end of the Reagan administration. Then it was the early Bush administration. We captured him. We prosecuted him. And it was all about changing that regime in our hemisphere to protect our country. No declaration of war, and Congress wasn't informed until the effort was underway because they were afraid it would leak. So there is precedent for this sort of thing.
Well, and adding to that, I do think we have to be smart as Republicans to be clear to the American people the stakes. Because if we're not clear about the war that is being waged against us, whether it's the dangerous cartels, in this case already described, the deaths from fentanyl, but also just the chaos and the destruction of the Western Hemisphere, the dismantling of the rule of law, the pressure that then push on immigration into our country. If we're not honest about the organized effort of the Marxists and the radical leftists and Islamists that are trying to destroy Western civilization in our country, and if we're not willing to empower our executive and to stand behind our executive within some degree of reason, you and I both would apply equally to Republican or Democrat president, some limits if we see something being too aggressive. But President Trump is right. His instincts are right, and what he's doing and what Secretary Hegseth are doing it is correct that we should be stopping these evil actors from killing our people and corrupting the Western Hemisphere and making us a weaker, less secure country. It is about time that we reclaim our position in the Western Hemisphere in a Trump doctrine for the 21st century.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at it as also the common sense of it. If you know somebody down the street is giving drugs to somebody else in the neighborhood for the purpose of spreading it in the high school, you can have as many people at that high school trying to prevent kids from using drugs and so forth and so on. But that guy who's behind it and so forth, you got to address that. And I can tell you that the founders of this country and the framers of the Constitution wouldn't be hesitant about this. Look at the Barbary Pirates and so forth. Another case where there wasn't a declaration of war. John Adams kept trying to pay them off. Jefferson comes in and says, that's enough of that. He sends what is our Navy over there, and they go to war, and they try to free what are these European slaves that had been enslaved by the Somalians, ironically, and others. And I just feel like sometimes some of these arguments are so stupid and absurd. There are black and white cases. But why is it that the left and some of our isolationists, don't get me wrong, why is it that their knee-jerk response is to attack Pete Hegseth, to attack the commander-in-chief, and they have no answers on what to do about all this drug stuff?
I think at the end of the day, it is comfort in being able to talk about it from the comfort of our homes in America. It's why, I know this is going to sound a little different, but stick with me for a minute. The people that I trust in the world who really, truly believe.
Oh, what happened now? Hold on, we lost you for about 10 seconds, Chip.
I'm sorry.
Try that again. Yeah, you're back.
Yeah. I'm in D.C. Sorry, I don't know why the cell signal's bad. But
oh, I know why. You're in D.C., but that's a whole other story. Go ahead.
Right. The Eastern Europeans, the Africans that have been subjected to tyranny, who are not allowed to carry out their faith, they understand freedom. They understand that you have to protect it constantly. And there are a lot of people, Democrat or Republican, that have gotten too safe and comfortable in our environment in the United States that they're willing to accept tyranny, lawlessness, danger to their own people, and they don't realize that we have a free will. Like when my great-great-grandfather moved to Texas, he was a Texas Ranger right outside of Austin in the 1870s, battling Comanche Indians. Now, you didn't just sit back and go, man, well, I hope somebody comes and protects me. You had to just step up and protect yourself. We got cartels who are trying to profiteer on the death of our children. That's insane, and we should stop it. And we shouldn't allow the Western Hemisphere to be this complete chaotic environment. He's right to try to get Argentina. Secretary Besson is right to try to figure out how to get strength there and push China out. We need to reclaim our rightful position in the Western Hemisphere. It'll make our country materially safer and stronger, and it starts with dismantling the cartels.
Boy, I hope the Texans elect you. I think they will, because we need you there, not just for Texas, not Texas, obviously, but the whole country. The Islamist activity taking place in, of all places, Texas is unbelievable. The effort to try and impose Sharia law in various communities, to create Islamic-only communities. I want to have you back, Chip. I want to go through this with you as well, because in many ways, Texas is becoming ground zero. There are other states that are ground zero, too. Michigan, in some ways, New Jersey, and so forth. But definitely Texas. The eye is on Texas, to flip Texas, to change Texas. And I'd like to discuss that with you as well. If people want to help you, Chip Roy, get elected Attorney General, and I strongly endorse him, folks. He's a dear friend of mine. Where do they go?
Well, thanks, Mark. ChipRoy.com. You can find me on X/Twitter at ChipRoyTX, ChipRoyTX. And I appreciate your support and your friendship. Keep doing what you're doing. We need you out there. Great voice for freedom, obviously, and all that you've done to stand up in defense of the Constitution. And I'm deeply appreciative of your friendship. But importantly, for all the listeners out there, we have to understand that they're at war with us, and you can't win a war that you don't recognize exists. So
100%.
we got to suit up.
No, you're the best. All right, Chip, you be safe out there. Take care of yourself, brother.
God bless. Take care, Mark.
God bless you, too. He and I go way, way back. We don't always agree on everything, but we almost always do. That's the truth. And he's a great man, and I very much support him for, Attorney General of Texas. Is there any question about that? He would be absolutely fantastic. We need men and we need women with a character like Chip. We really do. A lot of these battles are at the state and local level. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
Folks, I have a question for you. Do you believe America's best days are still ahead? With the 250th anniversary of the signing of the Declaration of Independence coming up in less than a year, my friends at the Heritage Foundation are taking stock of the current situation, and they need your input. They've launched a survey on America's future to gauge how Americans feel right now about where we are as a nation and where we're headed in the next 250 years. You know, for decades, your American values have been under attack, but now, with President Trump's administration in office, we have an opportunity to turn the tide and usher in a new golden age for America. But the Heritage Foundation needs to hear from you. What policies do patriots like you most care about? What do you believe are the defining principles of America? What legacy do you believe we should pass on to the next generation? Please visit heritage.org/Levin today and share your feedback and help shape the future of America. That's heritage.org/LEVIN. Paid for by the Heritage Foundation. It's amazing to me how the Democrats and some of these republics, how cocksure they are that this is a crime. Now that is as asinine as it gets. And yet here we have the Washington, D.C. propaganda mill. It is a machine spewing out the same thing, targeting Hegseth. And you have to ask yourself, why do they keep targeting him? Because he's effective. That's why they keep targeting him. Because he's young. He's charismatic. He's a combat veteran. He knows what he's doing. If he were a 78-year-old general and mumbling during hearings, they would be lavishing him with praise. But he's trying to do things that need to be done, and he's doing it at the direction of the President of the United States. So they figure they're going to attack the president, but it might be easier. The lower-hanging fruit is a cabinet secretary like him. He's been an outstanding Secretary of Defense. Period. Outstanding Secretary of Defense. I don't think we give this cabinet the credit that it deserves. And yes, I find that Pam Bondi has been an outstanding attorney general. And I find the leadership at the FBI and Kash Patel and Dan Bongino to be superb. I know that agency. That agency is part of the Department of Justice. I was chief of staff under Attorney General Meese, who, by the way, turned 94 yesterday. Happy birthday, Mr. General. One of my great mentors. It's a very difficult agency to reform and to run, but I think they've done an outstanding job. I know the grifters, the phony influencers who run over to Qatar, the phony podcasters who are desperate for eyes in order to make their millions. They have to have people to trash. I get it. And one day, Brother Bongino will be back behind the microphone, and these people will rue the day. He's a great patriot. And one day, Kash Patel will be able to speak his mind. They will rue the day. Oh, they will. And Hegseth, I want to thank him. I want to thank him for what he's been doing with Venezuela. I want to thank him for what he's been doing in the Middle East. I want to thank him for the things that he's doing in helping to build up the military, their morale as high as can be, and the number of people are signing up voluntarily for service. I'll be right back. This segment of the podcast is exclusively sponsored by Pure Talk. Pure Talk offers great coverage and can save your family money on your wireless bill every single month. Go to puretalk.com to find the plan that's right for you. Thank you again for listening, and thank you so much for this sponsorship, Pure Talk.
He's here. He's here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, America. Mark Levin here. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. This is the fastest show on conservative talk radio. Before you know it, begins and then it ends. It's because we do a lot in between. And I want to thank you all for being here. I want to tell you of a problem we're facing as a country, big problem. And, I've talked about the country of Qatar more than most. I think it is a major enemy of the United States. I don't care who supports them and who doesn't support them. I'm just telling you from my own analysis, the own gathering of substantive factual information. It is a very, very clever, dangerous country led by vile, vicious, evil dictators in the form of a monarchy. It is a country that was created out of whole cloth. Turns out, as a matter of accident, that this tiny little speck with 330,000 population and about 2 million inhabitants, many of whom are indentured servants, they give them visas from the third world. They come in and they take their visas away. Many of them have been enslaved in many respects, and there have been many reports put out on this. Apparently it is of no consequence. It is a vile, vile enterprise that runs that country. It truly is. Now, what I'm trying to find here, Mr. Producer, is, let me find it as I go through here. There was a piece that I read this morning about this massive push with tremendous amount of money, luxury hotels, 5-course meals, sporting events, a massive push right now by the monarchy in Qatar to buy off as many Republicans and conservatives and so-called conservative influencers as possible, to buy off as much media as possible right now, to buy off as much entertainers as possible right now. That's the effort. For instance, a publication called The Jewish Insider, it doesn't like me very much, by the way, center left. Qatar has these ties to the Muslim Brotherhood. Qatar is basically the banker to the Muslim Brotherhood. The Muslim Brotherhood has spawned Hamas, Islamic Jihad, and others. The Muslim Brotherhood murdered certain important Arab leaders, Sadat being one of them, was behind Al-Qaeda. It's like the mothership of terrorism. The Muslim Brotherhood now has a foothold in the United States of America. And so the administration has said that they want to designate the Muslim Brotherhood in certain countries as a terrorist organization. I was somewhat critical and said, no, let's just designate the Muslim Brotherhood in every country as terrorist organizations, including in Qatar. But Qatar is now doubling down on this charm offensive. They have focused in on certain Republican members, certain conservative social media influencers. They have also partnered with CNN and, I believe, the Wall Street Journal. I want to get into this with you because this is just the latest effort by Qatar, as pointed out by this website, and they're accurate. A group of House Republicans, and this was reported first by Laura Loomer, by the way, who's under constant attack, but she's been doing a great job. A group of House Republicans visited Qatar during the House's Thanksgiving recess, of all places to go, including Representatives Laurel Lee, Republican of Florida, Marlon Stutzman, Republican of Indiana, who's been on this show in the years past, Abe Hamadeh, Republican of Arizona, Ryan Zinke, Republican of Montana, and Lance Gooden, Republican of Texas. The trip occurred just before the House Foreign Affairs Committee is scheduled to vote on legislation that classifies the entire Muslim Brotherhood organization globally, not just country by country, globally, as a terrorist organization. A group of so-called conservative social media influencers also visited Qatar over Thanksgiving, posting glowing dispatches lauding the country and its role in hosting a U.S. military base. Rob Smith, one of the invited guests, posted credulously about Qatar on his Instagram feed after the trip, quote, I wasn't aware of a great deal of things about Qatar, I should say, only misperceptions and half-truths that I'd read about online. When the opportunity was presented to me with full authority and autonomy to ask the tough questions of the officials I'd been meeting with, I decided to risk any potential criticism and to travel and experience it for myself. And they wined and dined this guy as they have others. And now his eyes have been opened. How he's been fooled all these years. The great Qatar. Numerous celebrities have also, this week, gone to Qatar. Comedian Kevin Hart, celebrity chief Gordon Ramsay, tennis star Novak Djokovic, gathered in Doha over the weekend for the 2025 Formula One Qatar Grand Prix. So they have these massive events, golfing events, these kinds of events, tennis events, to sort of westernize their propaganda. And this week, the country is hosting the Doha Forum, a conference co-sponsored by CNN. Those attending the conference include several officials from the administration, ambassadors, politicians, philanthropists, alongside Israel-bashing officials such as former Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, sanctioned UN special individual Francesca Albanese, and former Iran envoy Robert Malley. Now, you know about Malley. Malley worked very closely with the Iranians, went behind America's back, and on and on and on. You can Google it yourself. And also a gentleman, I forget his name. I should write it down. I should memorize it, keep it in memory. Who was the first to finance Tucker Carlson's network. He bragged about it in Qatar. In Qatar. Yes, one of my first investments was in the Tucker Carlson network. Others on the guest list. U.S. Ambassador to Turkey, Tom Barak. U.S. Ambassador to NATO, Trump advisor Alec Brzezinski. Oh, that's the guy who goes online and attacks me in the inner circle. That's the guy, Alex Brzezinski, if that's how you pronounce it. Doesn't mean anything to me. The Quincy Institutes. Trita Parsi. Quincy Institute is a massive isolationist operation funded by both George Soros and Charles Koch. Now, I don't have the entire list. CNN anchor Christiane Amanpour, other officials, and so forth and so on. Now, think about that. Now, this comes at a time when Qatar's complicated public reputation in the United States is becoming a flashpoint, particularly inside the conservative movement. That's thanks to me. The facts that I presented on this program, the facts that I presented on digital TV, and the facts that I presented repeatedly on Fox. Qatar has spent billions brainwashing our young people, turning them against our country. Billions. Fomenting violence in our country. Qatar has helped promote organizations like CARE, which is connected to Hamas, which we know from what the FBI did with the Holy Land Foundation case and the bugs that they put in a hotel room in the Marriott Hotel outside the Philadelphia airport. Look at this, ladies and gentlemen. People from both parties, terrorist-supporting individuals, so-called conservatives, so-called podcasters and influencers, people from business, from the administration, from the Democrat Party. That's what Qatar is doing. They've defeated the Democrat Party. They've devoured the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party is now the AOC, Mamdani, Sanders, Tlaib, Omar party. The Republican Party they seek to conquer next and pretend that they're promoting Western values when in fact they hate us. They're connected to the Taliban, the Muslim Brotherhood, Hamas, and all the rest of it. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30-gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025. You know, Dinesh D'Souza is an American patriot, and he's a good friend, and he's a good man, and he's got this film, The Dragon's Prophecy, film.com. I want you to check it out. Dinesh D'Souza, I'm looking, the Qatari government's been very, very busy, in addition to its friendship with one of the financiers who started the Tucker Carlson network, and that financier was over in Qatar, Omid Malik, bragging about the fact. I see they have been working overtime, the Qataris, to influence Republican members of Congress, so-called conservative commentators and influencers, members of various organizations, left and right, politicians, left and right. They spend a tremendous amount of money trying to buy influence, don't they?
You know, Mark, I know an attorney who does some business in the Arab world, and he says the Qataris, one of their slogans is that they are the true chosen people because God made it such that they get oil essentially coming out of the ground and the entire country doesn't have to work. And so they do work, but they work at what they call financial jihad. And that is they deploy their resources to buying influence. Now, we know that they've been doing it for some decades in America through universities. And, you know, they don't buy a conference. They buy a political science department. And I think what they've realized of late is that they need to move into the conservative movement and they need to try to create this kind of schism within the right. And to some degree, they've been successful doing it. But there's big money behind it, and apparently a lot of people are succumbing to it. And people need to be aware that what they're getting is a bought and paid for influence campaign.
And it's massive. I mean, they've spent tens of billions of dollars basically destroying many of our institutions, our academic institutions. Everywhere you look, I mean, I was at a Johns Hopkins appointment not long ago. They built one of those buildings. I mean, the Medal of Honor Museum, brand new. They put $5 million into that. Formula racing, they're involved in that. Golf, they're involved in that. So they really are very smart and sinister about how they secrete themselves into these different Western institutions for the purpose of destroying them, right? Because they're the biggest backer of the Muslim Brotherhood and Hamas and Islamic Jihad and all the rest of them.
Yes, although they managed to play this sort of middle-of-the-road image in which they imply that they are standing in between. They're standing in the middle of the bridge between Israel and America on the one side and the rest of the Muslim world on the other, but they're very duplicitous kind of brokers. I think the other thing that's interesting is that they might have learned this from George Soros. They can deploy resources at the local level in America in school board campaigns, in sheriff's campaigns, local attorney general campaigns, where often $100,000, $200,000 makes a huge difference. And so you can buy a tremendous amount of influence in American politics if you deploy your resources kind of like a political venture capitalist of sorts.
Mm-hmm. I want to talk to you about what I call these neo-fascists and so forth. We've touched on this before. People who are promoting ideological viewpoints more in line with Qatar, more in line with Russia, more in line with the enemies of America, while claiming to be America first, while wrapping themselves in Americanism, isolationism as opposed to, smart foreign policy based on prudential decisions. And not only that, rather than provide true substantive support for their positions, they platform, nut jobs, phony historians, people who rewrite World War II and undermine our history, and they sound like Marxist leftists and so forth. What do you make of that?
Well, I think a couple of these characters, Nick Fuentes, Candace Owens, I see them as sort of solo political entrepreneurs who are navigating these treacherous waters of social media and trying to create profitable kind of niches for themselves. Tucker, I put in a different category because I think Tucker is, as you and I are, he's been around for a few decades. He knows that politics is fought in teams. He knows that to drive a wedge within our own side is to strengthen the other side. And yet he's doing this, and it's clearly not accidental. It would be one thing if he had a deviant position on this or that issue, but it seems like almost every day there is a new wedge, there's a new sort of turn of the screw. And so clearly there's a systematic campaign here, I think, to undo the MAGA coalition. And it's very surprising to me that there are still some people who don't see it. Of course, they don't defend Tucker on the substance. I mean, you won't even find the Groypers come out and say, Tucker's right about Sharia or Tucker's right about Maduro. He's really a conservative. They don't do that, but they use the old kind of don't cancel Tucker and let's leave him alone, Dinesh. But the interesting thing is that they too seem to recognize that Tucker's positions are indefensible.
And yet he does it to draw a crowd, doesn't he? In addition to destroy MAGA and the Republican Party, he's waging war, he said himself, on the Republican Party. He's waging war, he said himself, on evangelical Christians. He's certainly waging war on the state of Israel. He coddles Putin. He coddles the Qatari royal family. He coddles the president of Iran and so forth and so on. I guess what I'm going to ask when we come back, Dinesh D'Souza, is how long can this go on without the vast majority of even his followers saying, all right, I got to get away from this nut job? We'll be right back. In all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30-gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025.
The new American Revolution starts here. The Mark Levin Show. Call in at 877-381-3811.
We're here with our friend, Dinesh D'Souza. I want you to check out the Dragons Prophecy Film.com. You're going to love this. So my question, Dinesh D'Souza, is some of these people, are they going to flame out, maybe a slow flame out, but isn't there going to be a point at which people are going to feel misled? There'll always be that certain base that won't care, but still, the influence. I know the media are pushing them. The media want them to be the face of MAGA, the face of conservatism, and so forth. So that's a problem.
Right. I think that let's look at them individually. I think with Nick Fuentes, he conveys a certain type of dark energy that has a longer life than the normal kind of flame out. But I think pretty soon the act is going to become sort of tiresome. He traffics very much in the, I will say the thing that nobody else dares to say. Even when Tucker was using, these words like FAGGOT, but Tucker wouldn't use the N-word, and Nick goes, well, I'll use the N-word. So, you can do that for a while, and I guess there's a little bit of a shock value to it. But after a while, this all becomes sort of just wearying and tiresome. I think somewhat the same will happen over time to Candace for the reason that, she essentially relies on swapping out outrageous factual insinuations. But after a while, you got to step back and go, listen, has a single one of these insinuations ever produced a reliable fact that you or I could now stake, could credibly believe? And the answer is really no. There's just a migration from one to the next. I think with Tucker is the most elusive character, because even if we were to make a list of some of his most outrageous positions, he will say, well, I didn't say those things. True, I had the strange World War II guy, and I had the nun with the mustache, and I had this weird fellow, and he said that. So with Tucker, he's got this kind of shtick, which is a parody of open-mindedness. Some of his phrases are, well, I don't really know if Hamas is a terrorist organization. So he reminds me a little bit of Obama. Remember when Obama would kind of strategically scratch his head and well, I'm contemplating the distinction between ISIS and ISIL. And, Obama wasn't really doing that, but he was essentially trying to say, I'm a very deliberative, reflective sort of guy. And it took a few years before basically the whole country could see that this was a con man's routine. And I think Tucker is down that same path. But like with Obama, it's a more effective sales pitch. It'll take longer for people to figure it out.
Yeah, but you know what? Eventually they did, didn't they?
Eventually they did. And now, you just... With Obama now, you can almost see that whenever he opens his mouth, people's eyes start to roll immediately. And I think that's going to happen in this case as well.
Mm-hmm. But in the meantime, in the short to midterm, Dinesh D'Souza, they can do grave damage to the prospects in the midterm election and even 2028, can't they? Because in a fairly evenly divided electorate here and there, if you just even have a small fraction or a small percentage of the population, conservatives, Republicans, who choose not to vote, who are turned off or so forth, you can lose.
Exactly. And not only that, but I think that there was a quite serious play, particularly on Tucker's part, to bring some of the largest institutions on the right. We can, name the Heritage Foundation and Turning Point USA as obvious examples, to sort of get institutional buy-in to what you could call, Tuckerism or the Tuckerite turn
By the way,
MAGA.
it's really Pat Buchananism, isn't it? I mean, that's pretty much what it is. It's this paleo-conservative idea. But go ahead.
Well, it is, but I think that with Buchanan, I knew Buchanan, and you probably did. I didn't know him in his so well in his later phase when he became very deeply gloomy about the West. But see, when I saw Buchanan, even some of the stuff he was saying about World War II, I thought to myself, look, Buchanan's in this Spenglerian, gloomy idea that the West is finished. And, he's looking back and he's saying, that it was the two world wars that did it. And so I saw Buchananite revisionism as motivated by trying to serve this larger thesis of apocalyptic pessimism. With Tucker, it's a lot more sniper fire because it's all over the place. I mean, one day it's World War II, and the next day it's Ukraine, and the next day it is Sharia, and then he's on to Venezuela. And so with Tucker, it's a lot. It doesn't have the sense of being thought through at all. It's almost like he's deliberately twisting the knife.
I honestly think Buchanan was and is a lot smarter than Tucker. I don't think he's all that smart. I think he's clever. I think he's got the gift of sort of twisting sentences and thought processes and so forth and so on. But when you really think of something substantive, historical, scholarly, intellectual, Tucker's doesn't really come to mind, does he, Dinesh?
Well, I mean, think about it. Buchanan was a writer, and he produced columns week to week. He wrote several books. He's at least an amateur student of history. What happens with Tucker is you don't get any of this. I mean, Tucker doesn't really write. He doesn't have any sort of he makes these sort of declaratory judgments like it's been known from the beginning of Christianity that Christian Zionism is a heresy. It's like, reference, please. Citation, please. What is the name of this heresy? Who are the promulgators of this heresy in, let's say, the 3rd or 4th century AD? Can you name them? None of this is not only demonstrated, it's not even attempted. So it relies on the audience to just sheepishly nod and go, well, Tucker says it, so it must be true.
Mm-hmm. Why do you think that is, by the way?
Well, I think that what we have here is, you could almost call it a personality swap, a certain type of political trans phenomenon. I think what happened is Tucker built a lot of credibility when he was at Fox, when his monologues were like, the thing you had to listen to in the evening. Tucker built a reputation because of his scathing critiques of COVID ideology and issues like that. And then he metamorphosed into a different person. And so I know people who they're kind of appalled by the new Tucker, but they keep scratching their head about how sort of early Tucker became this Tucker. And they're kind of frozen in this attempt to try to understand why this happened. I'm less interested in why it happened and in the nefarious results of it.
Yeah, no, I agree with that. All right, very good. Well, you're doing a fantastic job. You spend a lot of time on the internet. There's a lot of ugly people on the internet, aren't there? You take a lot of incoming, don't you?
Well, these days, what's remarkable is, had you asked me, for most of my career, whether or not I have, and so sometimes people would ask me when I'd speak on campuses, have you experienced a lot of racism? And someone could ask the same question of you, anti-Semitism on the right. And I would say, no, I've actually traveled in the very, right-wing precincts of America. I've experienced very little of it. But somehow in the last, 6 months to 9 months, I can't give that answer to the question because there is so much vile sort of retaliation when you post anything, even relatively benign, but anything that's perceived as being sort of sympathetic to Israel or sympathetic to brown people or sympathetic to immigration. You get this kind of vicious name calling, and I've never really seen anything quite like it, and it does suggest a dark turn in our politics.
No, I see it too. The anti-Semitism online is unbelievable, and it's grown into anti-Christianity that's unbelievable. It's grown into anti-Indian, people with the Indian heritage. I've seen that. That's unbelievable, going after you, going after Vivek, going after others. It's really incredible. And some of it's foreign, we know that, but too much of it is domestic. I think a lot of it could be these They call them groypers. I call them gropers. But these Fuentes people, and a lot of the obviously are Owens and Tucker followers. I think they really play into the Klan mentality, to the neo-Nazi mentality. I'm just telling you, I think they really do, and I think all they care about is getting the eyes, grifting, and destroying what exists. You know, isn't there? Let me ask you this. There seems to be an overlap with the Marxist left in this regard. They believe the world began today, that everything before was wrong, except if they get a phony historian in to sort of to turn it into nonsense. But their mentality is, if you're 25 years old and you agree with them, you should blow off all history, blow off all that's come before, whether it's Reagan, whether it's Buckley, whether it's Friedman, whether it's Hayek, whether it's Adam Smith, whatever it is, Aristotle, Cicero, none of that matters. What matters is what we think today, much like the Marxists, no?
Well, it's true that that for some of these guys, their historical claims are based on like a single example. So they think, for example, that regime change never works because it didn't work in Iraq. I wouldn't even say it didn't work in Afghanistan. The record there's more mixed. Sure, the Taliban's back in power. But you and I could name 25 examples of regime change, let's say, in the last century that have worked out beautifully. I'm quite sure that if there was regime change now in places like Venezuela or Iran, the result, even if we don't know what it is going to be better than what's there now. And so you do have this sort of shoddy attempt to make general principles out of very limited historical materials, often going back no more than a decade.
Mm-hmm. Check out Dinesh's new film. It's great. The Dragon's Prophecy. The Dragon's Prophecy Film.com, to be more precise. The Dragon's Prophecy Film.com. You're going to love it, folks. I'm telling you, you will. And Dinesh, thanks, buddy. God bless you and your beautiful wife.
Hey, I appreciate it. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Take care of yourself. Good man right there. Good man. And there's a lot of good men and women out there who are taking this on and fighting, going forward, and seeking to ensure that the Republic survives. Sort of this pincer movement between the neo-fascists and the Marxists and the Islamists. Very, very important. Very important that we convey this to you and explain what's taking place. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
You know, in all the time I've been supporting Pure Talk, my wireless company, I can honestly say I've never seen an offer like this from them before. Listen to this. Unlimited talk, unlimited text, and unlimited data with a 30-gig hotspot. Just $29.95 a month for life. Friends, this is Pure Talk's top-tier plan, normally $65 a month. Now through December 7th, that's it. Just $29.95 a month. You're saving over 50% a month every month for life. Yes, that's on their crazy fast 5G network. But this offer is extremely short-lived. Go to puretalk.com/Levin. That's Levin for Pure Talk's best unlimited plan. Just $29.95 a month for life. Make the switch in as little as 10 minutes. Keep your phone, keep your number, and start saving with unlimited for life for just $29.95 a month. Again, that's puretalk.com/Levin, puretalk.com/Levin to switch to my wireless company, Pure Talk. Taxes and fees not included. Some restrictions apply. See puretalk.com for details. Offer ends December 7, 2025. And again, I will have a fairly significant announcement after the first of the year, maybe the middle of January, maybe right there in the first week, how we're going to expand our activities here. And because the audience is massive, you folks are so loyal and so patriotic, and we want to take advantage of all platforms in every form of communication. And we're going to continue to expand the activities that we're involved in here because there's so much at stake. And remember, I am mission-oriented. I am an activist. That is never going to change. Never. Now more than ever. The Power Hour is next. I'll be right back.
is here. Now, broadcasting from the underground command post, deep in the bowels of a hidden bunker, somewhere under the brick and steel of a nondescript building, we've once again made contact with our leader, Mark Levin.
Hello, everybody. This is the Power Hour. I'm Mark Levin. Our number, 877-381-3811, 877-381-3811. Well. What do we have here? Yes. Mark Warner. Mark Warner is an utterly useless public non-servant. Public non-servant. But he'll keep getting elected in Virginia as Virginia's turned darker and darker blue. And so you can see these reprobates, they get these seats and they're never going to leave. Like Tim Kaine, two of the dumbest senators in the country from one state, and that's saying something. Now you have a moron for governor, a jihadi for lieutenant governor, and a complete psycho for attorney general. Virginia. They call it the state for lovers. You ever see that, Mr. Producer? It's now the state for lunatics. Not the people of Virginia, the politicians in Virginia. Now, so we have Warner. He's on the Morning Schmo Show, which means nobody's watching him, but I'll bring it to your attention just because I can. Let's listen to this. Cut 5, go.
Remember, this is an administration that has treated the
First of all, he sounds like he's a cartoon character, doesn't he, Rich? Remember, he's a... Actually, he sounds like a male Nancy Pelosi to me, actually. In fact, in the right light, he actually looks a little like Nancy Pelosi, or she like him. Let's start over. Cut 5, go.
Remember, this is an administration that has treated the uniformed military with unprecedented disrespect when they were all brought to get a pep rally in front of Hegseth and Trump. This is
really, I suspect the military backs this president very strongly in a significant number, as opposed to you, moron. You. And why is this guy anywhere near the Pentagon? Who is this guy, Mark Warner? He was elected to office early on. He spent tens of millions of dollars way back when in the Commonwealth of Virginia to become governor. He made his money from, I don't remember what it was, early on in cell phones and that kind of business. And now he knows everything. Go ahead.
Fired, uniform generals from the head of the NSA, the head of the...
don't fire anybody. No. You can never do that, especially in the military. No. Abraham Lincoln fired a lot of generals, too, you clown. Till he found generals who would do what he needed them to do. No. You can't do that, says Mark Warner. No. Go ahead.
And I think, in many ways...
He sounds a little like Quasimodo. He sounds like a cartoon character. I forget who it was. Who was that, Mr. Producer, you remember? I used to know. Yes. Beavis and Butthead, that's who it was. Now, is that Beavis or Butthead, or does it matter? We never really watched. All right, go ahead.
Military may help save us from this president and his lame people like Hegseth, because I think their commitment is to the Constitution and obviously not to Trump, and I expect Bradley to adhere to that.
Listen to that. What do they mean, save us from Trump? What has Trump done with the military that's so horrendous? Seriously. What has he done? They're going to save us from Trump. These are sick bastards. They really are sick, as far as I'm concerned. It's Mark Warner. Sits on the Armed Services Committee. Why? I don't know why, but he shouldn't, should he? President has taken on Ilhan Omar. That's not a very difficult task, but at least he has the guts to do it. He said she's garbage. Comes to this country, This country embraces her with open arms, saves her and members of her family. She becomes very wealthy and spends her entire time trashing the country, trashing the Constitution, and whining and bitching. Says she ought to be removed. She ought to go back to her original country, Somalia, and try and fix that country if she hates our country so much. I happen to share that view, by the way. People don't get to just come into this country and trash it and try to overthrow it, try to destroy it, try and tear down the morale of the people. And yet that's what we have here with Omar. That's what we have. With a whole bunch of migrants who've come into this country. Not all, but too damn many. Particularly the Islamists. So here's Donald Trump in the Oval Office today. He's asked about this. Cut 6, go.
The mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, is saying that he's actually proud to have the largest Somali community in the country.
Wow, that stands for a lot. That's the guy that helped burn down his city in that police precinct. Oh, Mayor Frey said that? He's so fantastic. And, of course, he needs the Somali vote, this little weasel Democrat, in order to get his ass elected again. And he barely did, by the way. Go ahead.
He's a fool.
Well, his police chief is also saying...
I wouldn't be proud to have the largest Somalian. Look at their nation. Look how bad their nation is. It's not even a nation. It's just people walking around killing each other. Look, these Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar, who they say married her brother. It's a fraud. She tries to deny it now, but you can't really deny it.
Made in heaven.
She shouldn't be allowed to be a congresswoman, and I'm sure people are looking at that. And she should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota, okay? Minnesota, you have an incompetent governor. You have a crooked governor. He's crooked as hell, but he's incompetent. Walz he should be ashamed. That beautiful land, that beautiful state, it's a hellhole right now. And the Somalians should be out of here. They've destroyed our country. And all they do is complain, complain, complain. You have her. She's always talking about the Constitution provides me with... Go back to your own country and figure out your Constitution. All she does is complain about this country. And without this country, she would not be in very good shape. She probably wouldn't be alive right now.
That's the truth. He's speaking the truth. You're not allowed to speak the truth with the Democrat Party media. That is the truth. Cut 7, go.
So Somalia is considered by many to be the worst country on earth. I don't know. I haven't been there. I won't be there anytime soon. I hope. But what the Somalian people have done to Minnesota is not even believable. It's not even believable. And a lot of it starts with the governor. A lot of it starts with Barack Hussein Obama, because that's when people started coming in. And you have to have people come in that are going to love our country, cherish our country. They want to kiss our country goodnight. They talk about our country. We want them to pray for our country. This is not the people living in Minnesota. And she's a disaster. She should not be, and her friends shouldn't be allowed. Frankly, they shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople, okay? They shouldn't even be allowed to be congresspeople because they don't represent the interests of our country.
Mm-hmm. And what he's stating there is what used to be U.S. policy prior to 1965. Used to be U.S. policy that was supposed to be even subsequent to 1965. You have to show your loyalty to America, your allegiance to America, your willingness to cut your allegiance to other cultures and so forth. Doesn't mean you can't have, an Italian background and celebrate that background, or an Irish background and celebrate that background, or an African background or celebrate. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about America as your allegiance. A patriotic citizen. And coming to this country and trashing this country and attacking this country and attacking its institutions and on and on and on. you would never have been accepted in the past into this country. No way. You see, the purpose of immigration is to do what? It's to serve the citizenry, the current citizenry of the country. It's to improve the country. It's not to serve the interests of the alien who happens to come into the country, is here a couple of years, and then makes demands, like the Islamists. And they tell you, we're going to change America. Their imams tell us. They tell us. It's all over the internet. We're going to change this country. People are going to comply with Sharia law. They even talk about killing people who won't comply. They talk about creating these Islamist Sharia law-controlled communities within our states and within our country. What is that? And then people make excuses. This president's not making any excuse, and you're not going to find many politicians in either party, but certainly in the Democrat Party, but also in the Republican Party, who are willing to speak the truth. This man is. This man is. That's why they hate him. They hate him. And because he speaks the truth, he's a racist, you see. He's a bigot. Why? He didn't say, I'm attacking the Somalis because most of them are of color. They're black. He didn't say that. Because he doesn't believe that. But the stereotypes pushed by the left in order to avoid any debate, any discussion. Look, the governor of Wisconsin is as white as a piece of white chalk. He's the dumbest, most ignorant, radical left-wing kook, and he ultimately is responsible for all of this. He's not a Somalian, is he? He's not black, is he? And yet he's destroyed his state. He turned his head when all this corruption was going on, and his race is irrelevant as much as the race of the Somalis are irrelevant. What Trump is talking about is the culture of that country, which is a disaster, an absolute disaster. Here's the Minnesota police chief, Minneapolis, Brian O'Hara. Cut 8, go.
Folks that are masked, that they're not sure if they're law enforcement, that they may be kidnapping people. Like, we have had those reports. I want to be clear to the community. The community should know that if you see something like that, that is legitimate, that you don't know if someone is law enforcement, you should call 911. And you should provide as much...
Ladies and gentlemen, this isn't the way it works. ICE goes in, they announce themselves. They have the 3 letters on their garb, ICE. They have vehicles that have the 3 letters on their vehicles. They come in large numbers. It's not some slob on the corner walking around, hey, I'm ICE. No. These are people who are identifiable, recognizable, and so forth and so on. So to create the impression that these are people in masks, and if they come up and you're not sure who they are, call 911, this police chief is not a police chief. He's a left-wing kook activist. He relies on the support of the political infrastructure in Minneapolis. And I want you to understand something. This is important. I was the first to raise it, so I'm going to underscore it. This is the new Democrat Party confederacy. You cannot have cities and states under the Supremacy Clause of the Constitution, where the federal government is given plenary power over the issue of immigration, and the president in particular, so has ruled the Supreme Court about 12 or 15 years ago. You cannot have local law enforcement tell the citizens, and they are citizens of the United States, that they can defy federal constitutional enforcement of federal immigration law. And tell foreigners that they can defy federal law enforcement and federal immigration laws. They are not free to nullify our federal laws. They are not free to claim that they are immune from the Constitution and immune from federal law by claiming to be a sanctuary city or a sanctuary state. That is unconstitutional. Isn't it hilarious? the stripes on these Venezuelan drug boats, because they're out to destroy our country and kill our people, they say, that's illegal, you can't do that. And yet these are Democrats that support sanctuary cities and states, which is the closest thing to secession since the Civil War. They don't believe in the law. They don't believe in the Constitution. They're full of crap. They are destroying our country. Of course the Democrats are going to stand by this particular community. Of course the Democrats are going to stand by those who push Sharia law. Those who are going to stand is Democrat. They want to turn Texas, so of course they're going to support these Islamist Sharia law enclaves to try and destroy that state. That's all they care about, the Democrat Party. Mamdani. He's the face. He's the faith. He's the ideology of the Democrat Party today and in the future. And they don't care. It's power, baby. I'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
So Ilhan Omar, while she's on MS Now, what kind of a name is that for a no? MS Now. And that means what exactly? Seriously. But in any event, she's going to throw out the bromides. She's now married to another man who's not her brother, I don't believe. And they're worth $7 million because America is so racist. It's so horrendous. Unlike Somalia, which is a wonderland. It's the Disneyland of Africa. It's a hellhole where people are slaughtered, where gangs run the country. People are brutalized. That's what it is. Cut 11, go.
He's always been a racist, a bigot, a xenophobic, and Islamophobic.
All right, let me get all this because, she's good at memorizing slogans and then regurgitating them, burping them up. He's a racist, a bigot, xenophobic, and Islamophobic. Racist and bigot. I've always thought that's you, Ilhan. May I call you Ilhan? I think I will. And, of course, Islamophobic. Why, did he bring up Islam? I don't believe he did. Go ahead.
Called African nations hole in his first administration. We know that when he came down... He didn't
call African nations blank holes in his first administration. He called many nations out there that are blank holes. And many of them are. You're the one who had to escape Somalia, Ilhan. What do you call it? The winter paradise? What do you call it? More when we return. I'll be right back.
The Mark Levin Show, live and national at 877-381-3811.
Let's take a call or two or seven. Let's go to Pastor Jay, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, XM Satellite. Pastor Jay, how are you, sir?
Very well, Mark. Never felt better.
Thank you. Go right ahead.
Yeah, Mark, in Philadelphia, I've noticed an influx of mosque in Philadelphia and Philadelphia proper. I live in North Philadelphia, and I have noticed that there's more of a presence of, and some people call me an Islamophobe, which I am not, but I just noticed that there is an influx of Muslims both in the mosques that are being built in Philadelphia where CARE started, and I also noticed that in our school system there seems to be an introduction to Sharia law. A lot of the teachers, because as you know, Philadelphia is super liberal, are and they have the ear of the teachers and administrators in the school district of Philadelphia, and so I'm seeing it firsthand when I listen to your program, and then I actually look around in the community where I live. I see it unfolding every day.
Well, Pastor, I'm an old Philadelphian, and I have no doubt that you're right. I've been keeping track of this, and you're right in every respect. Everything you've just said. You have very weak political leadership, very left-wing. You've got this governor. Everyone, Josh Shapiro, he's Jewish, and he's been kowtowing to the most radical elements and imams in Philadelphia and elsewhere. But Philadelphia is becoming certainly ground zero in Pennsylvania and ground zero on the East Coast in many respects for this whole Islamist radical movement. And I'm not surprised that a lot of this is going on in North Philadelphia. I grew up on Cheltenham, right on the border with North Philadelphia. And I went to school at Temple in North Philadelphia. And, you've got wonderful people there, but I feel like this movement is moving into North Philadelphia, West Philadelphia, moving into Philadelphia, period, here, Pastor. So what do you think? I mean, are people noticing this?
No, even in the evangelical community, people seem to be asleep at the wheel. I've been hitting the pots and pans, banging the pots and pans. And again, it's fallen on deaf ears for the most part, and you don't have a lot of true conservatives in Philadelphia, even in our Republican Party. It's super liberal.
Yeah,
I wouldn't even say they're moderate. They're past moderate, and so I'm looked at and viewed as a person who's an alarmist and so forth. But again, Mark, I appreciate your program because it gives me a compass not only for what's going on around the country, but in Philadelphia, I kind of see exactly what you're saying unfolding more and more as the years progress. I've seen that over the last 3 or 4 years, an influx.
Well, thank you, Pastor. Now, on another note, what the hell's wrong with the Eagles? I had to take my Eagles hat off and throw it in my closet. It was so embarrassing.
Mark, they are playing horrible now, and I'm going to be patient with them because we did win a Super Bowl last year, so I don't want to be too greedy, but they're taking steps backwards. And I happen to disagree with you about the gentleman from Virginia. He does not sound to me like Quasimodo. He sounds like the actor from the Maltese Falcon, Peter Lorre.
You know what? You're right. You're right. Very good, Pastor. You call more often, okay? Love to talk to you. You're terrific.
Thank you.
God bless you, man. All right. Let's go to Jim Lusby, Maryland, the great WMAL. Jim, how are you, sir?
I'm doing very well, Mark. Thank you for taking my call. We met at your last book signing. Thank you very much for that. We talked about the Nationals real quick. That book is just phenomenal. If people do not understand what's going on in this country, my opinion, it all started back with an individual who said, we are going to fundamentally transform the United States of America.
You're right, Obama. And he started it. You're right.
Well, I didn't want to say his name.
It's all right.
Makes me sick to say that name. But, yeah, that's when all this started, when we had how is it that in Texas there are enclaves of the Muslim people that are starting Sharia law out there? How is that legal according to our Constitution?
Well, you're allowed to start it, but you're not allowed to impose it. And I think that's why electing Chip Roy Attorney General there would be tremendous. They've got a great governor there, Abbott. But you have these other states like New Jersey and Michigan with these Democrat governors who appease this and then embrace it and then promote it for the sake of the Democrat Party. That's the disaster, and it's hard to reverse this. But there's no assimilation taking place in these communities, none. In fact, their goal is to take out the country. That's the facts. And thank you for your calls. It was great meeting you, too. I appreciate it. And I want to mention this. I haven't. It's been a while. For those of you who really want to learn about this and so much more, my book on power is very readable, very accessible. I saw it was in Barnes & Noble. It's still up in the front. I want to salute them and other bookstores and so forth, and, of course, on Amazon.com. Now, right now on Amazon.com, they're having an unbelievable sale. It's part of their Black Friday sale that goes on for a few weeks and then stops. My book is 51% off. It's $13.25. Now, you might say, oh, they're trying to get rid of it. No. This is what Amazon does leading up to Christmas to try and draw purchasers. Quite frankly, away from retailers. That's what they're doing. It provides you with an opportunity. You can go to Barnes & Noble. I love Barnes & Noble. I go to a Barnes & Noble, and I'm in there 3 hours. I'm telling you the truth. I love it. It's like akin to candy store for me. Or you go into some of these other wonderful bookstores, too. I want to thank Hudson. They still have the book when you go at the airports and so forth. But over at Amazon.com, the dirty little secret is it's $13.25. And if you want to give this book as a Hanukkah gift or a Christmas gift or just read it yourself, and I strongly encourage you to read it. People actually have come up to me and said, this is the best book you've written. My wife tells me she thinks it's the best book I've written. And it's very accessible, intellectually, very accessible. And you're going to see information in there, and you're going to say, wait a minute. That's right. Wait a minute. He's been talking about this fusion of Marxism and Islam, and there it is again in the book. And it's not just that. It's going to open your eyes to the way Washington works, politics works, the parties work, these different ideologies work. It's a really, I would argue, deep book on power, easily understood. And we have a friend, and she's very smart. She's a big-time lawyer, and she has dog-eared the book throughout. She has a yellow pen and highlighted the book throughout. And she said, I stopped because I'm highlighting every page. She showed it to me. And so I haven't talked about On Power in many, many months because it came out the end of July. But if you want to grab a copy at a tremendous discount right now, I'm telling you, it's $13.25. That's 51% off on Amazon.com. Barnes & Noble's having wonderful sales for all of its books. I love Barnes & Noble. They were bought by another company. They have refurbished most of their stores. They've expanded the numbers of stores. To me, it's like Disneyland. And you're going to love it there. You're going to love it there. And same with these other stores, too. Please, I get it. But I'm just telling you, on Amazon, $13.25, you can't beat that. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.
If you're looking for really beautiful, illustrated, patriotic, warm books for your children, may I recommend my father's books, my late father's books? His book, Proverbs, was a fantastic book. You can go on Amazon.com and acquire them at a remarkable discount. He wrote the book Proverbs in 2015. It's a great book. He did all the illustrations in these books. He wrote a book called Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address Illustrated. He originally wrote it for adults, 1965. Back then it was considered cutting edge because he had photos in there of the battlefields and the dead soldiers and horses and so forth. It's tame stuff today, unfortunately. But it was reconfigured for children. He also wrote another beautiful book, Malice Toward None, and that was, of course, Abraham Lincoln's second inaugural address. So he does history through photographs, through drawings, and the print is just beautiful for children. The Crossing, he wrote the book about George Washington crossing the Delaware, the Battle of Trenton. These are the key issues. And in 2016, My Dog Spot. This book was actually written in the 1950s, before the book on Spot actually came out. But this was my dad's book, My Dog Spot, again with his original drawings and so it's a beautiful little book. And the last book that my father wrote and drew. And I literally showed it to him 2 weeks before he passed away. It's called Our Police, because he was very upset about the war on the cops. This is in 2018. And then we found when he passed away, among his papers, he had done a drawing, and it was the cover of another book that he had in mind, again for young people. But unfortunately his hand was shaking, but I framed it, and it's hanging right outside this office. It was going to be on the Declaration of Independence. He really wanted to get to younger people. All you have to do is go to Amazon, type in Jack E. Levin, Jack E. Levin. His various books, they'll pop up. I see they're wonderfully on sale there. I haven't looked at this in years. But again, if you're thinking of Christmas or Hanukkah, a gift for your children or your grandchildren, they're beautiful books by a beautiful man. And he's gone now 7 years. It's hard to believe. He would be 100 years old. And my wonderful wife. Really, really liked my father. And his wonderful wife, my mother, she was fantastic too. But these books, this collection of books, they're really fantastic. 2014, 2013, 2015, 2018, 2016. I just remember when he did them, and they're published by Simon & Schuster. So, and the paper in the book is the beautiful, thick paper, the shiny type paper, so the book will last. It's just to really help parents and grandparents read these books to their young ones, or at some point they can read them. And Mr. Producer, your kids, I think their favorite one was Proverbs, maybe, or am I wrong? They loved Proverbs. And Our Police, the two. They may be my favorite, too. Proverbs and Our Police. Beautiful books. I encourage you to... Look, I don't make anything out of this. I'm just telling you these are beautiful books. I encourage you to at least think about them. He worked very hard on them. We salute our armed forces, police officers, firefighters, emergency personnel, our truckers, the men and women in Ukraine, the men and women in Israel, and you, the American people, red-blooded Yanks. God bless each and every one of you. And thanks for listening. We'll see you tomorrow. Be safe.